Every mammal on this planet is born with a single, screaming instruction coded into the deepest architecture of its brain. Stay close, stay with the group. Because for millions of years, across every species that nurses its young, separation from the pack was not an emotional inconvenience. It was a death sentence. The infant that wandered from its mother was the infant that was eaten. The wolf that left its pack starved alone. This is not poetry. This is your nervous system. This is the ancient, primal operating system still running beneath every conscious thought you have ever had. Your body does not know that you live in an apartment with a deadbolt and a refrigerator. Your body still believes, on the most fundamental biological level, that to be cut off from your family of origin is to be exposed to the open savanna with no protection and no chance. So consider this. Consider the sheer magnitude of internal danger a human being must be experiencing, the depth of psychological threat that must be present for that ancient system to be overridden, for the body itself to say, against every evolutionary mandate it has ever known, that the greater danger is not in leaving, the greater danger is in staying. You did not arrive at distance casually. No one does. And anyone who has looked at you with confusion or judgment, anyone who has tilted their head and said they could never imagine doing that to their family, is someone who has never had to choose between their sanity and their bloodline. They have never sat in the specific kind of silence that follows years of trying to be enough for someone who is never going to let you be. They have the luxury of not understanding, and in a strange way, you would not wish your understanding on them. Because what no one tells you is that distancing yourself from family is not an act of rage, it is not revenge, it is not even, in most cases, a decision made in a single dramatic moment. It is something far quieter and far more devastating than that. It is grief. It is the long, slow, excruciating death of a hope you have carried since before you had language to name it. The hope that one day they would see you, that one day the version of your mother or your father or your sibling that you needed would walk through the door and finally be real. You have been holding auditions for a role they were never going to play, and the distancing did not happen when you got angry. It happened when you got tired. When the last audition ended and the seat stayed empty and something inside you, something deep and ancient and unbelievably brave, whispered that it was time to stop waiting for a person who was never coming. Psychology has a term for this particular kind of wound, and it is important that you hear it named. It is called betrayal trauma, and it is categorically different from other forms of psychological injury. When a stranger harms you, your psyche can organize the event. It is terrible, but it is coherent. The threat came from outside. The people who were supposed to protect you are still intact. The world still makes a kind of sense, but when the threat comes from inside the system, when the person who was supposed to be your first experience of safety is also the source of your deepest pain, the mind enters a state of dissonance so severe that it can alter brain development. You are left holding two truths that cannot coexist. This person is supposed to love me. This person is hurting me. And because a child cannot survive the conclusion that their caregiver is dangerous, because that conclusion, biologically, is the equivalent of accepting that you are going to die, the child does something brilliant and tragic. The child decides that they are the problem. If I am better, quieter, more helpful, less needy, more perfect, then the love will come. The safety will come, and this is where the trap is set. Not by you, for you. What keeps people tethered to dynamics that are visibly destroying them is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful behavioral mechanisms ever identified. Intermittent reinforcement. This is the psychological engine behind every slot machine, behind every addictive cycle, and it is the exact mechanism operating inside unpredictable family systems. If a parent were cruel every single moment of every single day, leaving would actually be simpler. The nervous system would have a clear, consistent signal, danger, leave. But that is not how it works. Instead, there are moments of warmth, unpredictable, unearned, and intoxicating glimpses of the parent you always needed. A moment of softness after weeks of coldness. A compliment after months of criticism. And each of those moments sends a flood of dopamine through your system that is so powerful it rewrites the entire narrative. Maybe they are changing. Maybe this time it is real. Maybe all I need to do is hold on a little longer. This is the hope trap, and it is not a character flaw. It is a neurochemical cage. Your brain was trained by inconsistency to keep scanning, keep waiting, keep believing that the next interaction might finally be the one that makes you feel safe. And the cruelest part is that the hope itself becomes the thing that keeps you in harm's way. Meanwhile, your body has been keeping a record that your conscious mind has been trying to ignore. Every family gathering where you performed calm while your pulse hammered. Every phone call where you heard a certain tone of voice and your hands went cold before a single accusatory word was spoken. Every night you lay in the dark, rehearsing conversations, trying to find the perfect combination of words that would finally unlock understanding. Your nervous system was not designed to sustain this. The human stress response is meant to be acute. Danger appears, you respond. The danger passes, your system resets. But when the source of danger is woven into the fabric of your most intimate relationships, there is no reset, there is no after. Your body begins to live in a permanent state of preparation for a threat that is ambient, that is everywhere and nowhere, that smells like the hallway of your childhood home. This is chronic nervous system dysregulation, and it does not stay in your emotions. It moves into your muscles, your digestion, your immune system, your sleep. It becomes your posture. It becomes the tension in your jaw that no amount of stretching has ever released. Your body has been whispering the truth to you for years in a language made of migraines and insomnia, and a knot between your shoulder blades that you have carried so long you forgot it was not supposed to be there. And if you were the child who became the caretaker, the one who learned to read the room before you learned to read books, the one who managed your parents' emotions so the household could survive another evening, then you are also carrying a grief that most people will never have a framework for. You are grieving a childhood that happened to you but was never actually yours. You were parentified, placed into a role of emotional responsibility that no child should hold, and the cost of that role was the silent burial of your own needs, your own confusion, your own fear. Somewhere inside you there is still a version of you that needed to be held instead of useful, that needed to fall apart instead of holding everything together, and that child did not get what they needed. Not because you failed, but because the adults in the room abdicated a duty they may never even acknowledge existed. This is where the concept of toxic loyalty begins to strangle authenticity. You were taught, implicitly or explicitly, that loyalty to the family meant absorbing its dysfunction without complaint, that to name what was happening was a betrayal, that to protect yourself was selfish. And so you learned to abandon yourself in order to remain in connection with people who required your silence as the price of admission. You called this love because it was the only version of love you were given. But love that demands the erasure of your reality is not love. It is a contract you signed before you were old enough to read the terms. And now, here you are, carrying the distance you have created like a stone in your chest. And your mind, your beautiful, loyal, terrified mind, is running its prosecution. Did I try hard enough? Am I being dramatic? What if they needed me and I was not there? What if I am the villain in their story of this? But here is what I want you to notice. I want you to pay attention to what your body did when the distance was finally real. Because your mind may be spiraling with guilt, but your body told a completely different story. Your shoulders dropped for the first time in years. You slept through the night without grinding your teeth into dust. Your stomach unclenched. Your heartbeat, for the first time in as long as you can remember, did not feel like a warning. Your body exhaled. And the body does not lie. The body does not perform. The body does not care about social expectations or family narratives or what the relatives will say. The body only knows what is safe and what is not. And your body voted, unanimously. You know the specific weight of this. You know what it feels like when their name lights up your phone screen and your entire chest cavity reorganizes itself into a brace position, like your organs are preparing for impact before you have read a single word. You know the strange, formless ache of standing in a public place, watching a mother gently brush her daughter's hair from her face, and feeling something crack open inside you that you cannot explain to anyone who has not lived it. You know the ritual of writing the message. The long, careful, vulnerable message where you finally try to translate your pain into words they might hear, and then reading it back, and feeling in your bones that these words will not land. They will be reframed. They will be denied. They will be read aloud to someone else as evidence of your instability. And so you delete it. Again, you delete the truth because you already know it will be used as a weapon, and you are so tired of arming the people who hurt you with the evidence of your own wounds. This is not a failure of your love. Hear me when I say this. The fact that you can still grieve them, that you still dream about them sometimes, that a smell or a song can still reduce you to the child who just wanted to be chosen. This is proof that your capacity to love survived something that should have destroyed it. You did not leave because you were heartless. You left because you were the only one whose heart was still in the room. You are not the one who broke the family. You are the one who refused to keep breaking yourself to maintain its shape. You are the first person in a long, long line of inherited pain who said, "This does not get to continue through me." And that took more courage than anyone who has not sat in your silence will ever understand. You are not lost. You are in the wilderness that exists between the family you were given and the life you are building with your own hands. And it is disorienting, and it is lonely, and some days it feels like the grief will swallow you whole. But you are not going backward. And the fact that you are here, listening to this, searching for language to hold an experience that most of the world is too uncomfortable to look at directly, tells me that you already know the truth your guilt is trying to bury. You survived, and you are allowed to build something gentle on the other side. If you are somewhere in the middle of this quiet, invisible journey, leave a heart in the comments. You do not have to explain yourself. You do not have to justify a thing. Just let yourself be seen for a moment, among people who understand without needing a single detail. And if this reached something in you that rarely gets touched, subscribe and stay. Because this is a space where the darkest rooms of the human experience are not ignored, they are entered softly, with the lights on, and with the kind of honesty that healing actually requires.